This is part 4 of our teaching series on the Gospel. In part 1, we looked at the very important revelation that Jesus is God and that He's the creator of all things. In part 2, we looked at the polarizing issues of gender and sexuality. From the beginning, God created two genders, male and female, and He created sexuality with the intention of reproduction, which needs to be expressed between one man and one woman. In part 3, we looked at how God gave mankind His authority and His dominion in order to rule over the earth. Now, in part 4, we're going to look at how Adam and Eve gave their authority and dominion over to Satan, a fallen angel whom they were supposed to rule over. When God gave man His image and His authority and dominion over earth, essentially He was making mankind His ambassador, representative upon the earth. Metaphorically, the title deed to earth was given as a stewardship to mankind. We were intended to steward the earth using our delegated authority. God gave man initial commands such as be fruitful, multiply, fill the earth, subdue it, and rule over every living thing. God also placed man in a garden for the purposes of man cultivating it and keeping it. God commanded the man that he could eat freely from any tree of the garden except the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. The command came with a promise: if the man ate from that tree, he would surely die. God gave man a choice, and God created man with the ability to choose, even if that meant choosing other than God's ways. This is often referred to as free will. With free will comes man's responsibility for his choices. God is not the ultimate party to be held responsible for man's choices. Man is. That is why God should not be the ultimate party held responsible for man's tragedies. God does not force any single person to choose to do things His way or not. Through the Bible, we learn that there are other created spiritual beings other than ourselves and God, called angels. We can also learn from the Bible that a created spiritual being, who we presently refer to as Satan, chose to rebel against God. Through his rebellion, he led a third of all angels against God, and they were cast out of heaven. At this point in the story, Satan is one of the living beings on the earth which mankind has been commanded to rule over. Remember, rule over every living thing. That includes the fallen angels. Satan visits Adam and Eve and proposes that they disobey God. Remember the song, "You Gotta Serve Somebody" by Bob Dylan? This is the crux that Adam and Eve were facing. If they choose to obey God, God is giving them the earth and giving them dominion over the earth. But if they choose to disobey God and essentially obey Satan, who's in authority now? Well, Adam and Eve chose to disobey God and obey Satan, and with that act, Satan usurped mankind's authority on earth and became the authority on earth. That was not God's will or original intent and design. See? Things can happen, and just because they happen doesn't mean it was God's will for them to happen. With Satan as the new authority on the earth, and with the introduction of death upon the earth, mankind's experience of life on earth is dramatically different from what the Creator intended it to be. God put a plan in place in order to redeem mankind and redeem the earth back from Adam and Eve's choices to disobey Him. At the beginning of the Bible, God made a promise to mankind that He would send a man who would crush the head and authority of Satan on earth. This plan was set into motion through the descendants of Adam and Eve.